Hey everyone, Gill Gross here, and it is time for a preview of the 2024 US Open men's singles final between Jannik Sinner and Taylor Fritz. Sinner, the top seed, going for his second career major, looking to sweep the hardcourt slams in 2024. And Taylor Fritz had never been past the quarterfinal stage at a slam before this very tournament. He now finds himself in his first career final. I want to jump right into talking about the tennis. Stylistically, these are two guys who I put in the same category for a lot of years. Linear power baseliners. These are guys who threaten off of both wings, hit big off of both wings, beat players, find advantages over their opponents with the quality of their ball striking, the ability to hit the ball very, very hard, very, very consistently from the back of the court. Andre Rublev, Taylor Fritz, Jannik Sinner. I felt like that was the group inside the top 15 that were executing this linear power baseline strategy at the best it can be executed. However, Sinner has kind of separated himself from that category by becoming one of the best movers, one of the best players on the run, that has liberated his consistency, his percentage tennis. And he's also worked really hard to get to a place where the variety is solid. He's comfortable volleying, he's comfortable using his touch and his hands, and he can vary up his baseline play rather nicely. I no longer consider Sinner just a linear power baseliner, because he's too good at too many other things. But naturally, that's still what he is. That's still what he was as a player who is coming up, and that is his most comfortable mode of play. Comfortable is a key word here, because I think both players are going to be comfortable in this matchup because they are so similar stylistically. Their tactical roots are planted in the same garden. The ball striking is going to be great. It's going to be awesome. When they played last year in the Indian Wells quarterfinal, that was a fantastic match. I haven't gone back and watched the highlights. I did read over my notes. I covered that match. I did a post-match video on that match. Maybe I will link it. But what I do remember, and a Masters 1000 quarterfinal, there are a lot of those every single year when you think about it. So it's difficult for any to stand out, to stick in your brain. But that's one that did for me. I thought that was an incredibly high-quality match. Of course, at Indian Wells, Taylor Fritz's favorite tournament, his favorite conditions, the biggest title that he's won in his career, and both Fritz and Sinner's previous meetings have come at Indian Wells. The head-to-head is 1-1. Fritz won in, it might have been 2022. And then Sinner won last year in the quarterfinals. I will refer to last year's match as I go through my analysis in this preview. I'm going to do what I normally do, kind of make an argument for both players, and then at the end tell you which argument I feel is more compelling and maybe bring some other stuff in. So let me start with Fritz, who comes in, of course, as the underdog. And you might be tempted to say that, oh, Taylor Fritz does everything better, Jannik Sinner does everything better than Taylor Fritz. That Sinner is just a better version of Fritz. And that thought definitely crept into my head, because I always think about that when I look at a matchup. I think, where is Fritz better? Is there an area? And the truth is, there is. There very clearly is. So I don't want to hear that Jannik Sinner does everything better than Taylor Fritz, because Fritz's first serve is better. There's no doubt in my mind. I do have access to good stats for the U.S. Open because of my position at U.S. Open Radio. So I will be kind of integrating these numbers into the analysis just because I have the ability to. And I understand that the opponents, the paths are different for each player, and that, of course, informs what some of these statistics are going to end up looking like. But Fritz is 2% better for the tournament. First serve points won. He's 2% better first serves in play. If you look at unreturned first serves for the tournament, which I think is a better stat here because it literally takes away all the separate stuff that has to do with serving or winning a service point, and it just pinpoints the serve and isolates it. Fritz, 48% of his first serves have been unreturned for the tournament. That is 15th best among all players. Sinner, 44%. Still good, but that's 30th best. Not as good. When Fritz won the second set at Indian Wells last year against Jannik Sinner, that was the set that Taylor won. His serve took over. 66% of his first serves were unreturned in that set. 100% of his first serves on the deuce side were unreturned. Yeah, I know, crazy. When Fritz made a first serve on the deuce side in the second set of their quarterfinal last year, Jannik never got one back. It's crazy, but it's true. So, look, Taylor, in order to win, at least needs to have moments, at least needs to have service games where the quality of his first serve is taking the pressure off. And, in some ways, this is strength to strength because we'll get into Jannik's return. But Fritz's first serve, maybe it is good enough to really make things a little bit easier on him. We'll see. From the baseline, because certainly against a returner like Jannik, it's not going to be as simple or as easy as hitting, good first serves. From the baseline, obviously, whichever pattern is going to enable Taylor to play more offense and less defense is the better pattern. And I think for Fritz, that's going to mean getting into as much backhand to backhand as possible. Just because Sinner off of that backhand wing, he is more probing and he's more predictable. Obviously, on average, the ball isn't coming as heavy, as fast, or as spinny. So it's just more manageable. If you get the ball to Jannik's backhand from a neutral position, you're more likely to do less running. He's going to go cross court. He's going to trade the ball. He's not going to be quite as intentional about doing damage, about being aggressive off of it. And that's going to give Fritz an opportunity potentially to beat Jannik to the punch. Get into the backhand and backhand because that's the pattern that Fritz is going to be able to attack off of more often. So you get into the cross court. I think then it's going to be important that Taylor is quick to change down the line, and then you look for the attacking forehand off of that. And I think that's the pattern for Fritz that he needs to try to find. Also, backhand to backhand, maybe Taylor has a little bit of a consistency edge because there have been times at this tournament where I think Sinner has leaked some unforced errors off of the two-hander, particularly into the net for whatever reason. Second serve, returning the second serve. Again, if we're going to talk about how can Fritz stay on the offensive, you got to talk about the second serve returning. This was another factor at Indian Wells. In the first set, Sinner was jamming Fritz up on the second serve. In the second set, Taylor did a much better job of preparing, anticipating the body serve, getting out of the way, and hitting aggressive returns. And that's going to be a key this time as well. He cannot get jammed by Sinner's second serve. It is predictable. It does go into the body. It is a quality second serve, but you do know what second serve he's hitting for the most part. Maybe he'll mix it up. I don't know. But Taylor needs to be ready for that slice serve into the body on the second. And Fritz needs to be able to find forehands off of the fourth shot, ideally, or play that fourth shot up on the baseline or inside the baseline. That's going to be really, really crucial, and it's all set up by the second serve return. The last argument for Fritz would be the pressure factor. Sinner has never been the overwhelming favorite in a major final on Sunday. I do think he was the favorite slightly going into the Australian Open final against Daniil Medvedev, just because Daniil's legs had way too many miles on them. But this is a little bit of a different situation. Normally with Jannik, when his arm gets tight, we just see a lot more unforced errors. Do I think it's going to happen? Not exactly. But I also think it's a factor for Taylor that he might be able to relax here. And he even said after his match in his press conference, he said that he felt Sunday was going to be a lot less stressful than that Friday night match against Frances Tiafoe, which was kind of probably in his head a 50-50 thing. And I don't know how satisfying the U.S. Open would have really felt to Taylor had he lost to Frances Tiafoe in the semis, a player who he had a 6-1 head-to-head against. I don't know how satisfying it would have been. I think at this point, it's satisfying no matter what. And it's going to be pretty easy for Fritz, in my opinion, to just go after the ball, to not play with a lot of fear or a lot of tension. And where you really usually see that is on the Fritz forehand. Taylor's backhand performs at a pretty similar level match to match to match. You don't see major changes on that side. His forehand is a totally different story. It's a barometer for Taylor Fritz how he's hitting his forehand. Because when he's playing with freedom, it's a cannon. He crushes off of that wing. And when he's tight, he just gets tentative and he just doesn't achieve the same damage. So we will probably see the good version of Fritz on the forehand side when it comes to his nerves. I don't think he's going to have a tight arm. Maybe if he's in position to win, that's where the pressure kind of comes in. But I just think it should be said. The pressure factor should be stated. Because Sinner is in a position that is uncharted territory. And for Taylor, same thing, but house money. No expectation. Now let's focus in on Sinner a little bit and talk about his advantages. What his keys are. I think that starts with his athleticism, his court coverage, his ability to maintain his shot quality when he's on the run, when he's at end range. The ability to make athletic returns of serve. To move up to short balls with a little bit more speed. Like just the mobility of Jannik Sinner is, when I compare these two players, that's probably the biggest difference between them. And then you're starting to look at, well, when you play Jannik Sinner, does one good serve win you the point? No. Does two good shots win you the point? Not necessarily. But on the other side, when you're playing Taylor Fritz, good serve, it gets it done a lot of the time. Two good shots in a row, it gets it done very often. That's the difference. So if we're going to say the ball striking is basically even, which is a huge compliment to Taylor Fritz if we say that, but I think he's potentially worthy of that huge compliment. If we're going to say that, well, where it's not even is the movement that kind of facilitates and provides the foundation for that ball striking. I want to go back to some stats and start with returns in play. Sinner has made 80% of his returns for the tournament, second best among all players. Fritz has made 73% of his returns in play, pretty good, but not elite, 34th among all players. Doesn't help to play Matteo Berrettini in the second round for that particular stat. Winning against the first serve, huge difference here. Sinner, 37% return points won against the first serve, second best among all players. Fritz, 25% winning against the first serve, 69th among all players. Break rate overall, Sinner, 40%, Fritz, 25%. Why am I talking about these stats, and why do they demonstrate athleticism? Why do they highlight the importance of movement and court coverage? Because that's what winning return points is in men's tennis. Like, that's what it's about. These first serves are huge. These forehands are huge. Players are attacking, offensive, playing behind their first serve. Do you survive? Are you athletic enough and skilled enough defensively? Are your absorption skills good enough to survive the first serve, the first shot after the first serve? Jannik has become elite defensively. And Taylor's not quite there yet, although he's so much better, and although it was a massive key in his win over Francis was his ability to kind of dig out balls out of the corners and really commit to his defense, particularly in that fourth set. By the way, from my notes, direct quotes from my notes in regards to last year's Indian Wells quarterfinal. Sinner's lateral movement is a bit better, and there was more effective defense on his side. I wrote that last year in March. Now it's even better for Jannik. I think it's even leveled up. Going to some tactical keys. Backhand to backhand. I mentioned that Sinner sometimes gets a little bit cross-court happy. I mentioned that I think it's going to be key for Fritz to beat Jannik to the punch and go down the line. Well, same thing for Jannik. Go down the line before Fritz does, and that gets the point back onto Jannik's forehand more often than not. So get it back on the forehand before you get attacked if you're Jannik Sinner. And that's all about changing direction on the backhand down the line. So look for that when you're watching the match. When they go backhand to backhand, who's able to change? Because I think that's going to be important for both. I think Sinner should drop shot Fritz quite a bit. Taylor, when he gets the drop shot, he usually goes deep. He usually slices the ball deep. That makes him vulnerable for the pass. The players who are best at retrieving the drop shot do two things really well. They redrop really well. And that does immediate damage on the counter. Or they're good at being able to drive the ball once they get up to the drop shot, so that they hit it deep, but they hit it deep with some speed. It puts them in a better position to have an easier volley on the next shot instead of having a difficult volley off of a passing shot opportunity. So I think Sinner should drop shot Fritz. And then in big moments, Sinner's forehand, it's probably the best ground stroke on the court. It is the shot that takes a neutral rally and places it on Sinner's terms. In big moments, for Jannik, it needs to be the best shot. I think it will be the best shot, which brings me to my prediction. I want to circle back to some major themes with Jannik. First of all, physically, there were concerns coming into the event. Overall, in best of five, we know that at the last four majors that he's played, he's lost in fifth sets. I think Sinner has looked really good physically. And this year, for him to lose on hard court, it takes, one, a great player and a great performance. Two, for the most part, it's taken some sort of decline in his movement. He is 54-4 in the last year on hard court. That is a 93% win percentage. Only Shelton, Djokovic, Alcaraz, and Rublev have been able to take him out. I kind of see Sinner as Fritz on 1.5 speed. And the ability to absorb firepower is what this will come down to, in my opinion. Because Fritz can offer a lot of firepower. Sinner can offer a lot of firepower. Who absorbs it better? Jannik does. The only thing that can change all of this, in my opinion, is if Sinner can't play with freedom, but I can't see the pressure really getting to him like that. My pick is Sinner in 3. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.